Daf Yomi, Tractate Bava, page 14b, starting at the top of the page, with the words Shlosha Klalos Be'arba Mikomos. There are only three distinct principles, but they are listed as four cases because they apply in four different places. Mishnah. Shum Kesef, Shava Kesef, Bifnei Bezdin, Ve'alpi Edim. B'nei Chorin, B'nei Bris, V'anashim Michlal Hanezek, V'hanizak, V'hamazik, V'tashlumin. The determination of payment of damages is made by monetary appraisal. One pays with items worth money. This halacha applies before a court, and it is based upon the testimony of witnesses who are free men, in other words, men who are not Canaanite slaves, and who are members of the covenant, and women are included in the halachot of damages in the same way as men. And both the injured party and the one liable for the damage are involved in the payment. The Gemara will explicate each of these principles. Gemara, what is the meaning of the determination of payment of damages is made by monetary appraisal? Rav Yehuda says this appraisal of the damage caused should be made only in terms of the monetary value of the damage. The Gemara notes we learn in this Mishnah, this halacha, that the sages taught explicitly in a case in which a cow damaged a cloak and the cloak injured the cow. For example, the cow tread on it and thereby damaging it, and it became entangled in the cow's legs, causing the cow to trip. One does not say that it may be presumed that the damage to the cow is offset by the damage to the cloak, and the damage to the cloak is offset by the damage to the cow, and therefore the owners of both are exempt from any payment. Rather, the court appraises separately the damage caused to each side in terms of its monetary value, and only then calculates to what extent the liabilities offset each other. Shava Kesef, the Mishnah continues, with items worth money. To what does this refer? This is, as the sages taught in a brisa, payment is made with items worth money. This teaches that the court attends to the collection of damages only in order to collect from property that serves as a guarantee, in other words, land. But if the injured party proceeded of his own accord to seize movable property from the one liable for the damage, the court collects damages for him from those items he seized. According to the brisa, the phrase items worth money is referring to land. The Gemara analyzes this. The master said in the brisa, payment is made with items worth money. This teaches that the court attends to the collection of damages only in order to collect from property that serves as a guarantee, in other words, land. The phrase items worth money, therefore, is used as a term for land. The Gemara asks, from where is this inferred? Rabba Bar Ula says that the phrase items worth money is referring to something that is worth any amount of money, and what is that? It is something that is not subject to price fraud, which is the halacha with regard to land. Unlike the sale of movable property, the sale of land is valid irrespective of the sum for which the land is sold. The Gemara challenges this explanation, but slaves and documents are also not subject to price fraud, and yet these are not included in the phrase items worth money, as the court does not collect payments of damages from them. Rather, Rabba Bar Ula said the phrase is referring to something that is acquired with money, which is the halacha with regard to land, but not with regard to movable property. See Kedushin 26a. The Gemara rejects this explanation, but slaves and documents are also acquired with money. Rather, Rav Ashi said the phrase is referring to something that is worth money but is not actually money, and all these things in other words, movable property, slaves, and documents, are considered like actual money because they have the defining characteristics of money in that they are valuable and portable. Rav Yehuda bar Chinana raises a contradiction to the opinion of Rav Huna, son of Rav Yehoshua, in the Brisa cited earlier. It is taught the Mishnah's statement that payment is made with items worth money teaches that the court attends to the collection of damages only in order to collect from property that serves as a guarantee. In other words, land. But it is taught also in another brisa. The verse states the superfluous phrase, "He shall recompense," Exodus 21:34, to include items worth money and even bran. A relatively inferior commodity is accepted as a valid form of payment. The first brisa teaches that only land is a valid form of payment, whereas the second brisa teaches that one may pay even with movable property. Hacha b'mayaskinan b'yasme. The Gemara answers, with what are we dealing here? In the brisa teaches that the court collects damages only from land. We are dealing with a case where damages are collected from orphans, whose father was liable to pay damages. The brisa teaches that the liability inherited by the orphans applies only to the land they inherited from their father, as it is liened to their father's debts. Ibiasmi ema seifa. The Gemara asks if the brisa is referring to collection from orphans, say, and try to explain accordingly the latter clause of the brisa. But if the injured party proceeded of his own accord to seize movable property from the one liable for the damage, the court collects damages for him from those items he seized. The Gemara asks if, as suggested, the brisa is referring to collection from orphans, why does the court collect damages from him from those items he seized, as the father's movable property is not liened to his debts? The Gemara answers, the case is like that which Rava says, that Rav Nachman says, with regard to a Mishnah in Ksubos, Ketubot 84a, which teaches that creditors who seize movable property as payment for a debt may keep those items. That is referring to a case in which he seized the property while the debtor is still alive. Here also, the brisa is referring to a case in which he seized the property while the one liable for the damage was still alive. B'fnei Bezdin, the Mishnah continues before a court. What does that phrase mean? Prat l'mocher nachasov v'achar kach holech lebezdin. This phrase should be understood as a qualification of the previous phrase in the Mishnah that teaches, as the Gemara explained, that a court collects damages only from land. The Mishnah then teaches that the court collects only from land that is still in the possession of the one liable for the damage when he appears in court. This excludes a case where the one liable for the damage sells his landed property and afterward goes to court. Since at the time of the hearing he no longer owns land, the court does not collect damages from it. The Gemara challenges this. Should we conclude from the Mishnah that if one borrows money and then sells his landed property, and afterward he goes to court, the court does not collect the loan from those landed properties that he sold? This is certainly incorrect, as the creditor has a lien on the debtor's property from the time that he borrows the money. Elaprat lebezdin hedyotos. Rather, the phrase before a court should be understood as an independent clause that excludes a court of non-ordained judges, hedyot, from judging all types of damages, as the payment for certain types of damage is considered to be a fine, and only expert judges who have been ordained are able to impose fines. Al pi edim, the Mishnah continues, payment is based upon the testimony of witnesses. Prat lemod b'knas v'achar kach bo edim shehu pater. The Gemara explains this clause is stated to exclude from liability one who admits he is liable to pay a fine, even if witnesses come afterward and testify that he is liable to pay it. The Mishnah teaches that he is nevertheless exempt due to his admission. The Gemara asks, this works out well according to the one who says, one who admits mod b'knas v'achar kach bo edim pater. This works out well according to the one who says, one who admits he is liable to pay a fine is exempt, even if witnesses come afterward and testify to his liability. But according to the one who says, with regard to one who admits he is liable to pay a fine, and then witnesses come afterward and testify that he is guilty, he is liable to pay the fine, what is there to say in explanation of this clause of the Mishnah? Seifa itzrich. The Gemara answers, this clause does not serve to exclude some other case. Rather, it is needed to preface the latter clause that teaches that the only people who are accepted as witnesses in cases of damage are both